Ladies and gentlemen, we are back here live at the EOP, Executive Office Building, the Eisenhower Building, here on the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act and the 99th anniversary of the birth of Medgar Evers, both taking place on July 2nd. And again, honored to be here. We're thankful to the administration for inviting us to be here exclusively to spend Civil Rights Day here at the White House. Our good friend Tom Perez was here earlier, and we know one of our favorite agencies over the years. We've always taken a very, very close look at jobs and jobs numbers and what have you. So we have with us now the acting secretary of the Department of Labor, Julie Sue. How are you?
I'm good. It's so good with you, Reverend.
It's good to be with you as well. Happy Civil Rights Day.
Happy Civil Rights Day.
You enjoying your time at the Department of Labor?
I am. I mean, we're doing good things. I think there's no better time to be at the Department of Labor than under the president that has said that he's going to be the most pro-worker, pro-union president this country has ever seen. So we're doing good things, trying to fight for working people every day.
Yeah, I have some union friends watching. I'm sure they love hearing that when you start out saying pro-union. That's very, very important. In general, these have been some of the greatest jobs gains in history, if not the greatest. Help me with that. What is the history here?
There have never been as many jobs created under any president in the same amount of time as has been done by President Biden. Okay. And if you especially think about where we were when he came into office, right? When we got here in January of 2021, remember right before that, we'd had COVID raging out of control with no national strategy to address it. Unemployment was sky high, and people didn't know if they went to the store if they'd be able to find toilet paper. And now today, we've had over 15 million jobs created. The unemployment rate remains lower for the longest stretch of time than the 1960s. It's been at or below 4% for over 2 years now. That's pretty extraordinary. And the Black unemployment rate is the lowest it has been on record. So what that tells us is that when you are intentional about creating good jobs, which this president talks about all the time and is delivering through his historic investments, and equity, meaning paying attention to who gets those jobs, you can move the needle. You can create real opportunity. And that is one of the biggest priorities that we have. Yeah,
that is a difference that's being made. You all actually have some breaking news for us, don't you? You all have a new rule. Is this today?
Yes, today is a big day. It's and none too soon. It feels appropriate on Civil Rights Day because, as Dr. King said throughout his entire life, workers' rights and civil rights go hand in hand. And today, one of the things that we announced is a heat rule. It's the first nationwide standard to protect workers from the devastating effects of heat in the workplace. So,
it's the first time this has happened.
The first time this has ever happened. And it's a long time coming. This is, heat today is the leading cause of weather-related death. It's just, it's devastating. And I have traveled the country, and whether I'm talking to farm workers in California or Mississippi or construction workers in, Pennsylvania or Nevada, I hear just how damaging it is for working people to have to go to work. For the rest of us, it's uncomfortable, inconvenient to have it be so hot. For workers, it can be deadly. So our nationwide standard is meant to prevent those deaths. And not just for outdoor workers. We also hear from workers who work in restaurant kitchens, right? Workers who work in warehouses and factories in Georgia. These are all places where workers are suffering because of heat, and it shouldn't have to be that way. And under President Biden, we've issued the first nationwide proposed standard.
So why did it take so long? When this type of rule happens, I guess you have to do some negotiation.
Rulemaking takes a long time anyway, just because we work so hard to get it right. And there's a lot of things we got to do. We got to check with small businesses, right? We got to, listen to stakeholders. But one reason this has taken so long is because the majority of workers who suffer from heat illness, heat stroke, and death due to heat are low-income workers. They're often workers who are too often invisible in our economy, in our society. And President Biden said from day one, no one's going to be invisible in my America, right? And working people in particular are going to be valued, are going to be seen, are going to be heard. So, last year he looked me in the eye. This was when the Texas governor said, "I'm not going to let my cities and counties protect workers from heat." President Biden said to me, "Why would anybody do that?" And let's be clear where we stand. So, a year later, here we are. We've put out a proposed rule.
And folks, no one can bicker with this. We see how hot it is for those of us who aren't working jobs outside, and some of us may even have air conditioning where we are, but it is still hot.
That's right.
It is too hot. And so, and as you mentioned, people's lives are in danger. So when you do a rule, this is for everybody.
That's right. This is for construction workers, farm workers, restaurant
Private
workers,
sector,
factories.
Everybody.
That's right.
Have you gotten any reaction yet? Has there been any resistance?
I mean, some people have called for this for a very long time. So we've heard a lot of, a lot of celebration around it. The other thing, just to note, is, we also did an overtime rule that expands the protections of the 40-hour work week.
Right.
And yesterday, what went into effect was a bump in protections for overtime. So now anybody making a salary of $43,888 or less is eligible for overtime after 40 hours in the week, overtime pay. So that's about, right, like making sure that if you work long hours, you should be compensated for it. If you have to be away from your family, right, in order to make a living, you should actually make a good, honest salary.
Yeah. No, these important initiatives. What are your thoughts about the role you're playing and some of the work you're doing on this anniversary of the Civil Rights Act? What's the relationship to you between fighting for workers and unions and civil rights?
Well, so I was a civil rights lawyer for almost 20 years before I came into government. And the accomplishments, right, what's embodied in the Civil Rights Act, the idea that everybody has dignity, everybody should be able to participate in our political process, right? There should be, real access to our democracy, are the same themes that really animate President Biden and this administration. And on day one, he came into office and put out an executive order that said, we are going to do everything we can to combat systemic racism, not just outside the federal government, but also inside the federal government. He called out all federal agencies to look at what ways we might be perpetuating racial inequity. And we see that again in the economic indicators, in the closing the black-white unemployment gap, in real wages going up. Right? Real wages are up, especially for low and middle income workers in this country. Mm-hmm. That means more breathing room, right? More ability to enjoy their piece of the American dream for working families. And so those things are it's how workers do is really connected to the well-being of our country. And when people have that kind of breathing room, they can further participate in our democracy. So very, very closely connected.
And Lord knows, I mean, historically, there was a relationship between the civil rights movement and labor and the church. I'll be heading to Los Angeles Friday to speak at the services of James Lawson.
Yes.
I was raised in Clark Memorial in Nashville, where he organized the Nashville sit-in movement. I was born a few years later, but my mom was in high school, and she and her brother were in high school when James Lawson was teaching classes on nonviolence there in Nashville.
Oh my God. So just to share a little story. So please. I'm from Los Angeles. And as you know, for the last couple of decades, he was teaching nonviolence and, resistance, including with labor unions in LA. And so I just came from Birmingham, where I was with Mayor Woodfin a couple of weeks ago, and said that I had looked forward to going back home and telling Reverend Lawson what we were doing in this administration. So it is a big loss, and I take it as, my responsibility. Sounds like you do too, to carry on that legacy of how do you, really build a lasting movement to achieve real equity.
And how these things intersect. I mean, you want people to have a right to make a good, decent living with health care. And to make a wage. And for those of us in the clergy, I mean, Jesus called laborers. You know, he didn't call elite people. These were folk that would have been in labor unions if they had existed back then. So this is in fact very, very important work. The jobs numbers have been so good and so consistent. It seems like that's going to continue. There's nothing on the horizon that you can tell that might, because at one time people were about the Fed and what they were going to do.
Right.
But seems that has calmed, so the ship is pretty steady now.
I mean, I will say most people said there was no way we would have the kind of recovery that we've had, right? If most people who were betting back in 2021 said either the economy's, too hot or too cold, right? Suddenly there were too many jobs being created. And truly a sign of President Biden's steady leadership was he said, we got to invest big in this country in order to create the jobs and create the economic dynamism that is required to come back from the devastation of the last administration. And then it was about how do we ensure steady, stable growth? And both of those things have happened, and we've achieved job growth, unemployment, that has really defied expectations. The other thing is you mentioned unions, right? We have been all in on making sure that workers have a real chance to have a voice on the job, and whether that's supporting, workers gaining a fair contract at the bargaining table, or just saying that unions built the middle class and the middle class built America. It is really a powerful moment for unions in this country. And last year, about 400,000 workers joined unions, and the majority of those were Black and brown folks. And so we also know that unions have been a powerful force for racial, equity in pay, right, and opportunity.
No, that is important. So where are we now, Madam Secretary, on the labor force participation rate? That's going up.
Yeah, that's been very solid also. It's been solid across, demographics. I think that is also a sign that people feel hopeful, right? That they want a job, they come to the labor market and they find a job. Now, one of the challenges that we are addressing right now is how do you make sure that everybody who wants a good job knows what jobs are available in their community and then has the opportunity to get that job, right? I call it an opportunity infrastructure. We've been talking a lot about physical roads and bridges, ports and airports. We also have to build the roads and bridges that connect people to the good jobs they want and need, and employers to the people they want and need, and make sure we're reaching into every community to do that. And so we've been making lots of investments in organizations, a lot of Black-led organizations that help open up pathways. Sometimes people use they don't have the skills to do that work. It's not a skills problem. It is a infrastructure opportunity problem. And if we can build those strong roads and bridges, people want to work. They've got the talent, they've got the drive, they've got the potential. We got to make those connections.
Why not let them work? Why not allow that to happen?
100%.
And that infrastructure, that should be creating even more and more jobs. Anyway.
That's right. And we're, at the same time that we fix physical roads and bridges and ensure every family has clean drinking water, we should fix an opportunity infrastructure that has some of the same problems as the potholes and they were not built to reach every community problems of our physical infrastructure. We are fixing that right now, and we're seeing opportunity in all communities. How
do you, as Secretary of Labor, interact with the private sector? What's that dialogue like?
A lot, right? I mean, the president's Investing in America agenda, he had a vision that we would invest federal dollars into manufacturing, right, into our physical infrastructure, into clean energy to address the climate crisis. And that would bring private investments in too, because they now saw an opportunity to make things in this country, right? To expand, the industrial base of the United States, including in parts of the country that had been, shuttered from factories closing and jobs being exported. And so that private investment has been coming in to the tune of billions and billions of dollars. So our work is really to work with those employers and with labor unions and workers to make sure that the opportunity infrastructure is strong so they can get the workers that they need. So when they signal the jobs that they're going to need, we are developing, programs with unions, with community colleges to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to be trained. Justice impacted individuals, right? Single mothers, like all, that everybody can see themselves in the good jobs that are being created.
And trained to, back to the unions, I mean, that's something that's part of the struggle to get young people into apprenticeship programs.
Absolutely. So if we are building the opportunity infrastructure through roads and bridges that connect people to good jobs, apprenticeships are like super highways, right? They are connected to a real job at the end of a training program that will be a lifetime career, right? That's changing people's lives and building intergenerational wealth. And since President Biden came to office, we've had about 90,000 African Americans in apprenticeship programs that were not in them before.
Wow.
So that's real impact. And we're just getting started, right? That the important point is this is seeds that we have planted that are starting to sprout. But our vision is to really, transform. There was a McKinsey study done about if you just close the black-white wealth gap, you would raise the gross domestic product of this country by 4 to 6%.
And everybody would benefit.
Everybody benefits. Everybody does better. So that means that combating systemic racism is also good economic policy, and we need to keep on doing that work. It can't be reversed overnight, right? The decades of underinvestment and exclusion, but we've made inroads.
It can be done overnight, and precisely because it can't be done overnight, the work you're doing has to continue. The clock can't run out, because every time we get set back, it takes us even longer to get where we need to be. I want to ask something. Even today, while Black unemployment is going down and it's better than it was, traditionally Black unemployment, for whatever reason, has almost always been twice that of white. Is it, even though it's down, is it still twice?
No, it is not. So that gap has closed too. Again, when we're intentional about both opportunity and equity, we can move the needle. So it is still higher though. So we know that we've not done everything that we need to do. The other thing you asked about, labor force participation rate. Labor force participation rate for women has been extraordinary since President Biden came into office. In fact, we have broke our own record, which breaks all records for women being in the labor market. And Black women have really powered the economic growth in this country. Yet still, in 2019, we did a study on occupational segregation, which is like some people being channeled into jobs that pay less, that are less safe, right, that are less secure. And occupational segregation is costing Black women almost $40 billion a year compared to white men. That, if we don't solve that, right?
Explaining it, occupational segregation is when
some people, some communities are channeled into certain jobs that pay less, that aren't as secure, that involve more risk. And it's been,
for example,
there are lots of women and women of color who do care work. Right? Care work is not high paid work. It should be, right? It should be valued. The president has also issued an executive order on valuing care work and expanding opportunities, for people to get good, reliable care. But care work remains an area of work in which the job quality is not what it should be. Versus, right, when we look at infrastructure and some of these like construction jobs with good apprenticeships that we're talking about, right? Those are high paying, good, secure pathways to the middle class. And so we need to end the occupational segregation that puts some people into some jobs and some people away from the good paying jobs. And that's also been a big priority for us. And that's why we're investing in groups like Chicago Women in Trades, a Black-led women organization. She Built This City, a Black-led women's organization in Charlotte, North Carolina, that's really saying, no, we can do any job if we're given the opportunity.
Two quick things before we have to go. Roderick stepped out, so I thought we were just going to keep going. I mean, you can talk forever, and Weston said, no, you got to go. But because I'm having the ball. I had a revelation, speaking of the care workers. Had some SCIU representatives and they knew home health care, and they were fighting. They got some victories finally in Virginia, for some of the benefits that they need. But we were talking, I said to myself, that must be about, especially when it comes to Black women, and then it really applies to all women of color now. Care work is the one thing in this country that for centuries was free. Women took care of the folks' families. And while we're talking about this, I wonder, is it just that culturally people just don't think you're supposed to get paid for it. It's just automatic. You're supposed to take care of people. And we had a whole panel of people say, we haven't thought about that. But it's like the aversion to it was, we've never paid y'all.
Right.
You just take care of us. And so I'm glad to see, hopefully, that's finally changing.
Yeah, that's right. And if you even look at like laws like the Fair Labor Standards Act, right? That's like the fundamental protection that provides for, a nationwide minimum wage and, protections in the workplace. From the very beginning, some industries were cut out of that.
Yeah, right.
And those were industries that were, dominated by people of color who were, again, kind of stuck into doing that work. And so there is a thing about what jobs should be valued. There's also a thing about what people have been valued. And we need to reverse all of that in order to, again, sort of reach this idea that, this promissory note, right? That from the Bank of Justice, we want to make sure that everybody, can draw the funds from that.
That's right. So folks, glad to have with us Julie Sue, the acting secretary of the department, talking about all these great jobs, black jobs, so to speak. All of them are.
There should not be black jobs or white jobs. There should only be good jobs, right? And everybody should have access to them.
That's right. That's absolutely true. And glad to see all the gains that have been made. And for the foreseeable future, looks like it'll continue. That's why we got to stick around and keep getting this work done. I will carry your regards to LA with me.
Please do.
How do you get back?
Not as often as I would like, but
you enjoying being acting? You enjoying this work?
I like I said, there is no better time to be the labor secretary than under this president.
That's right.
And there's no better time to be an American worker than under this president. So,
That's right.
So we will keep up what we're doing.
And prayerfully, the bountiful blessings will keep on coming. Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Thank
Let's talk
you.
soon. And she wants to come on, folks. She hears all the other labor secretaries have been on with me, so she wants to come. So we're gonna work that out.
Wonderful. I love it. I'll see you again soon.
All right. Keep spreading this good news. Julie Sue, folks, with us. And this is so important. Heat, y'all. This is something we take for granted. Folks out here working in the heat. This is a rule.
That's right.
To protect people from heat. Y'all know how hot it is. Finally, people are realizing what climate change is and how dangerous it is. So good news on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right.
Great
Take care now.
Thank you so much.
Folks, we are live in the White House Executive Office Building, the EOB. Take care now. And Keith is here. Keith, come here. Keith Washington's here, y'all. But Keith need to do something. I want you. So I did employment and earnings. You're going to do wealth and business ownership. Share with our audience some of the things, the good things can you see? You need glasses.
So wealth among Black Americans is up a record 60% since 2019.
Now read that part. Go down. Do the other one. The one right there. What is that up under? What is that category? Where's your glasses, Keith? Keith says he's not. I'm older than him, but Keith can't even see the piece of paper, y'all. You can't see that.
Housing costs are lowered for Black families by investing in new quality, affordable homes.
Okay, now you got to go. Look who's here. Hold it. Come on. You will not believe who's here.
Who's here?
The star of the show. This is the grand finale. How are you? Excuse
Give me a hug.
I don't know. Excuse my seat. All this equipment I'm tired of. How are you?
Living the dream.
Really?
Yeah, always.
You having fun? You enjoying everything? You still like it?
I still like it. I'm the White House press secretary. I had to speak for the President of the United States.
Yeah.
That's an honor.
Yeah.
And a privilege.
Yeah, it is. Karine Jean-Pierre, folks, is the White House press secretary. She joins us on this day. Thank you so much for letting us come in here like this.
Thank you so much for being here at the White House. Look at you. You always look sharp.
Yeah, your hair looks so pretty.
Oh, thank you.
The White House staff is clean.
We clean.
America came to the NMPA and she
This is just for you, though.
What, really?
Yeah, we just clean for you.
She came to the NMPA convention and shut it down.
I've seen her style. I've seen it. She's not playing with anybody.
She had a whole fashion show for us. So,
okay.
What was today? What was top on the list in terms of what you had to dress today? I didn't know because I've been in here because I didn't see.
Are we live?
Yeah.
We are?
Yeah.
Well, today.
If you can talk about it.
Okay. Today we talked about, the debate. We talked about, the president's record on how he continues to deliver for the American people. We talked about the 60th anniversary
That's right.
of a very, very important day, the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And here's the thing about that. Personally, for me, I would not be in this job.
No.
If it wasn't for the people before me who fought
Yeah.
and died
Yeah.
to get that act done. And I think for me, as I'm in this historic role, I always, I can't forget that.
Yeah.
I can't forget that. I stand on so many people's shoulders, and I know that they fought, they
Have
died, and they worked really hard.
Have you spoken with him today? Did he share any thoughts with you on the civil rights on this anniversary?
It's been so busy, so crazy. I've seen him, but I have not had a chance to speak to him about this particular issue. As you know, this is a president that started his career. The reason he got into politics is because of the civil rights movement, and he proudly speaks to that, talks about that. And it is important to him, especially being from Delaware, and what he saw and what he experienced, especially, working as a lawyer, starting from there and then moving on up. And so, and not just in his early days, obviously, one of the first executive actions he took in this administration was making sure that he signed an executive action to deal with voting rights from the federal level, to do everything that we can to make it easier for people to vote, especially folks in our communities that get disenfranchised all the time when it comes to voting. Obviously, we need to do more. We need to get legislation done, and he's going to continue to call for that. But that is how President speaks to it all the time. How he got started was because of the civil rights movement, and he would not be here if it wasn't for the movement and the people who supported him in his efforts to be here.
This is fundamentally a civil rights White House, is it not?
Oh yeah. I agree. I never thought about that, but it is a civil rights White House for sure. I mean, have you, aside from the work that we have done, I don't know if before you go, if you've been downstairs to where the former Vice President Humphrey's office used to be, and if you walk in, it shows the photos from the 1964. It talks about, lays out Dr. Martin Luther King's Jr.'s kind of journey in helping to get the Civil Rights Act, and it's a room that many of us go in to remember and to be closer to that moment, and so that's right below us.
Yeah, I think I've been there. I think I was there for.
Yeah,
I was there for a part of it.
Maybe
at one point.
Maybe, but to your point, this is a civil. I believe so. I mean, you think about the president, how he got started. You think about the vice president. You think about what we have done, executive action, legislatively, making sure we lift up the Black community, making sure that as we were rebuilding the economy, because the economy, as you know, Rev, was upside down after COVID during the pandemic, and we had to make sure that the Black community was not left behind. And that's why you've seen an increase of wealth, wealth with the Black community, a 60% increase. That's why you saw, unemployment for Black Americans with a 9%. Now it's in the 5%. Still too high, but we're working to get it down. When you think about home ownership, via HUD and because of the president's direction, we made it a lot easier for Black Americans to take away that discrimination, to be able to get a home. And I know that's something that housing is still a huge issue for Americans, but we're going to continue to do the work, lowering costs, obviously. Small businesses, we've seen a spike in small businesses in the Black community more than 20 years. All of that matters.
Criminal justice reform.
Look, when Congress couldn't get it done, the president signed an executive action to deal with criminal justice issues on the federal level. But we got to get that George Floyd Act done. We got to finish, and we're going to continue to push Congress to do that. But the president took action. He took action, and that shows his commitment to it. But it's not enough. We got to see Congress act. Yeah,
we got to continue to see these things through. In the work that you do, and it's a funny thing because I'm not normally in the White House press room, and that's probably healthy.
I think you were in there once.
Yeah, I was in there a couple
you remember,
times.
You remember once or twice? I remember you in there.
Folks want to cut across the sister, and then then I have to be prevented from going up there and saying, we ain't having that.
You were good. You were great.
You know, I'm texting her like, you want me to come up there and say something?
Yeah, you did. I remember.
You can't cut across her like that. And I didn't appreciate
You were Rev was on it. Rev was on it. He had my back. He was
But it must be meaningful for you to be in that position and to represent us.
Yeah, it is. It is very meaningful. It is pretty special. I mean, look, I didn't get here by myself. I got here, and I was saying this at the beginning when you asked me, am I still having fun? And my answer was, I work for the President of the United States. I speak for the President of the United States. And that is not something that's lost on me. I am a Black woman that speaks, that is the White House press secretary, the first. And I'm the 35th, so there has been 35 of us. And I'm the first person that looks like me. And I know how much it moves people in the community. I know what it means to young people in our community. I meet people who cry and get emotional.
I'm sure.
And some of them are like, I don't even know what you're saying, but just to see you, just to see you, because just think about it. It has changed. Me being there has changed how people view that role. How people see that role.
Right.
I'm in because of that job. Anytime I do a briefing, I'm in people's living rooms, speaking on behalf of the leader of the free world. But this would not happen if it wasn't for this president. We started off talking about the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We started talking about how the president got into this because of the Civil Rights movement. Look, he picks who gets to represent him at the podium. He picked me.
Are you at liberty to tell us just, I mean, not in detail, but what's your day like? Do you go, before you go out there,
I can,
you go talk to him first? What do you all do?
So I have a team of 12 people that work for me, work in the White House press office. They help me prep. We work closely with the communications team. We work closely with policy people across the administration, certainly at the White House, but also that goes across the administration on where the president stands on certain issues. But also it's having our fingers on the pulse and getting a sense of what the Americans want, what reporters want to ask about. And there's always, 2 or 3 stories that are leading the day, so you get a sense of what's going to come into the briefing room. And there are times where I go directly to him and I'm like, sir, we don't actually know where you stand on this, or how do you feel, or they're going to ask me this question, how do you want me, I'll say that, how do you want me to respond? And he'll have an opinion and he'll have a thought. Obviously, I'm representing him. So there are times where I do that. And then there are times where I see him after a briefing and I talk to him about where the press is, and I let him know what we talked about, and he'll ask me, what did I say? He's like, okay. He'll say, next time I want you to lean into that. So he's very, very much aware. He's very much involved. And that's the day. I prep for hours. I have meetings. I prep for hours, get to the podium. I mean, literally, we're talking right after I just did a briefing.
Right.
I just finished a briefing and I came here.
You all heard what she said. Some days he'll ask her what she said. Now that's when you put trust and faith in something. He's asking after the fact.
Yeah, that's true.
What she said. That's some awesome faith in somebody to speak for you. That's not a small thing.
I appreciate that, but also I'm supposed to know where the president stands on certain issues. That's my job.
You have to be informed yourself.
Yeah, because in reality, while I am Karine Jean-Pierre and I'm in this job, I am Karine Jean-Pierre that represents the President of the United States, even in my private life, because people see me and, they still see me in that role. They don't see me as Karine Jean-Pierre, the citizen. They see me Karine Jean-Pierre who speaks on behalf of President Biden. So that is how this world works. I mean, that is very real.
It's probably also a little bit odd for you because in your role, you're not part of the campaign. You really can't talk about that.
No, I can't.
But they still ask you stuff.
Oh yeah.
So what's going through your mind when you try? You have to.
I gotta be super mindful. For folks who don't follow politics very closely, there's something called the Hatch Act.
Right.
And when you are a federal employee, you have to be very careful about talking about an upcoming election. You can talk about a past election, but you can't talk about an upcoming election. And so right now, 2024, the presidential, that's in November, I got to be super mindful, super careful. And I can't, as a federal employee, I cannot speak to that. And I have a pretty, my role is even more so designated because, as I just said, when I leave this job, people people don't click off and be like, oh, she's in her private life, so she can't talk about, she's no longer the White House press secretary. They don't see the difference. So in particularly in my job, there's some people when you're a commissioned officer, well, all commissioned officers can in their non-official way, they can talk about a campaign. There's certain things that they can do. But even as a commissioned officer, I cannot do that. So I got to be super careful. There's the Hatch Act. There's the Hatch Act.
And you're not immune from the Hatch Act.
No. If
y'all will get that later.
Yeah.
She doesn't have immunity.
No, I don't. I don't have immunity. I just picked up on what you were laying down.
Other folk got immunity right here.
No.
So
No.
now I know about that, and it's interesting because living here in D.C. for 25 years, Hatch Act is federal, but it applies to D.C. government employees
I
as
didn't
well.
actually know that.
Yeah. So if you're an employee of the D.C. government,
You're also covered by the Hatch Act.
you work for the Department of Public Works. You're hatched.
Yeah.
That's what they call it, being hatched. So you can't really deal with that. And I guess too, you're on call all the time, aren't you?
Oh, 1,000%. I always tell my team, we're on the front lines.
Yeah.
We're on the front lines.
So when something's happening or is a crisis in the Situation Room, can you be there, or do you have to wait to be briefed, or can you be close so you can be read in?
I could be close and could be read in. Yeah, I mean, it's because there's so much going on in our world. But I'm definitely briefed. I have to be prepped. I have to know what's going on in order and know how to respond to certain things, because I am speaking on behalf of the president, right? And it's not just domestically; it's globally. People watch the White House briefing, not just here, but around the world.
Yeah, probably more than the other.
Probably, yeah. I mean, people are very much, and it is not because of me, Karine Jean-Pierre, but they want to know what the White House, what the president is saying. They want to know what is coming out of this White House on issue X, on issue Y. Like, what is it that we're saying? And so sometimes they turn on the briefing room to see what is it that we're saying on this issue.
Yeah. Did any foreign policy come up today?
No, not today. Not
Really?
today. Law domestic. I mean, we pretty much are moving towards, what's happening in November. There's a lot of focus on that, domestic politics right now.
Did you have to kind of guide the conversation around this being Civil Rights Day, or did the media?
No.
Did the media bite it today? Did
No.
they really?
Oh, I had to. Oh, yeah. No, I
Which is kind of shameful.
Look.
There ought to be more media interested in what this day means.
There ought to be.
Yeah.
It is a 60 years, and 60 years is not that long.
Yeah.
It's not that long. You think about it, it's not that long.
So I've been talking about this. So this is also the 99th anniversary of Medgar Evers' birthday.
Oh,
today.
Wow. He has such a powerful story.
And
my goodness.
as moved as we all were for him to get the medal,
Medal.
Murray Evers couldn't be here.
Yeah.
So that following weekend, a couple of days later, I happened to be in LA, and Rena called me. She said, "Go with me to Mom's house to give her the award." And it was just an honor to be there. I said, "Well, we got to document this."
Yeah.
So we just posted the video today with the president's voice. I have to send it to you.
Oh, that's amazing.
With the president's voice, and
well deserved.
to see Murray Evers
Yeah.
hold that in her hands, and in the video she takes it and just hugs it like that close to her.
I mean, look, that story is incredibly powerful. We were in Normandy in France for D-Day. The president commemorated 80 years of D-Day. And he was there.
Yeah.
As a young man, and the president talked about his journey. Like he was there for D-Day.
Yeah.
He has a phenomenal. He was there for D-Day, but he was there around that moment, and he has a phenomenal history.
Yeah.
Phenomenal history.
So one of the reasons I brought
He's a
that
hero.
up, and I know we got to go. So the last year, the Christmas party, I got a little trouble with Karine.
You did?
Yeah, because I was in the line, and then I started the sidebar with POTUS. And you were like, "You got to go."
Yeah. I had to move the line. That was pure love. I had to that was doing my job. I had to get that line.
But you know how people like that are. I mean, he wanted to keep talking.
Oh,
right?
yeah, he would have talked to everybody for 20 minutes, but we had to get that line moving.
So I don't know if you actually heard what we were talking about. We're trying. This is Civil Rights Act 1964.
Yeah.
no one was more instrumental than Clarence Mitchell Jr.
Yeah.
So we want to get that bust in the Capitol while
Okay.
we can get it.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay, that's what you all were
Speaker
talking about.
Pelosi was in, and he was. That's why he stopped. He said, "Oh God, yeah, we got it,"
Yeah.
because he talks about the Constitution.
Yeah.
I believe that Clarence Mitchell gave him, and so we're going to be following up on that, and getting all that kind of stuff done.
How's your son?
Great, magna cum laude,
Nice.
May 18th from Clark Atlanta University.
Nice.
So very,
What's
very
next for him?
thank you. He is now at MLB Network
Oh.
because he was captain of the baseball team. Played
That
baseball.
I remember
Yeah,
that. I remember when you talking about that.
So, and I got to send it to you. He was on the air the night of the Rickwood Field game in
Yeah.
Birmingham.
Well,
So I'm sending it to you. So he's doing a thing.
good. I'm glad. Tell him I said hey.
How's yours? How's your daughter?
She just turned double digits. She's 10. I can't believe
Wow.
it. As you know, it flies back.
That's what I tell everybody.
I remember when we first met, your son was like in high school, junior
We can't
high.
believe it. It has
It
flown
flew
by.
by.
That's what I tell everybody with kids.
It
Enjoy
flew
while
by.
you can.
You gotta enjoy it. You gotta.
How does she feel about mommy
You
being on
know,
TV every day? Does she watch?
No, I think it's really, I would have to ask her. I think there is part of her that's incredibly proud.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time, it wasn't this year, but it was a year before. One of her teachers told me that she was bragging about me, like they were like, well, my mom, and she's like, well, my mom was. It was like one of those back and forths.
Right.
And I was so surprised because we really don't talk about it.
Right.
You know, you try to give your kid as much of a normal life you can. You really don't talk, but there's nothing normal about it. But and so, I think it'll hit her more as she gets a little older.
Yeah, that's usually what
usually
happens.
right.
Yeah, no question about it.
Yeah.
Karine Jean-Pierre, folks, is the White House press secretary, and you heard her say if you watched the press conference today, she pushed the issue of this being Civil Rights Day. When has that happened? That does not happen except in this scenario that we're in now, and we need it to continue. That's all I'll say. That's why we're here. Want people to know how important this is. A lot of stuff's being done just wouldn't be happening if not for all the people here. And that's also good to make a good point. One individual doesn't run the whole government. There's a team of people that help to make it happen, and we ought to keep that in mind as well. Thank you for being here. Wonderful to see you. Great.
Thank you.
Look great. Mwah.
Thank you.
Wonderful,
All
folks.
right. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. We're going to wrap up here from the Executive Office Building, MIP at the EOP. Thank you all for joining us. We've been streaming, so watch it later, share it. More, we'll put the audio on the podcast, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you all.